Hello, ladies, and welcome back to the Chit Chat. Happy 2026. This is the first show of the year. That's crazy. We are officially 7 days into 2026, and today I am going to do what I think is going to be a quick episode. We'll see how this goes. But I want to talk about the 3 pillars of content. I used to get really frustrated when I would go to study other mentors' ways of creating pillars of content. And it just felt like a lot of busy work where it felt like, okay, in this moment, I have a lot of ideas. Like I can open up my Google Doc, I can list off all of my ideas under these pillars and create subtopics, and it feels super organized and I feel accomplished. And then I never go back to it. Like I never create content from that Google Doc. And that is not the way that I want to teach you content pillars. I feel like I have mastered these content pillars in my own work, and I've put them to practice over the last 6 months to a year. And now I'm going to hand them over to you. And the reason that I think these are going to be so helpful for you is it's going to help you never run out of ideas. Number one, you'll never feel like, what do I post today? And you'll also feel like every single piece of content that you're creating, when you stick to these 3 pillars, is the type of content that's going to call in your ideal client. It's going to be valuable for her, and it's going to progress you forward versus just posting into a black hole. Okay, so the 3 pillars of content are built on the client journey. So if you don't understand what a client journey is, let me just give you a brief rundown of what that looks like. You have someone come into your world, and let's say it's a new client, and you have to first assess where she's at, whether she's in your one-on-one space or your membership or your mastermind, it doesn't matter. You have a clear understanding of where she is, what she needs, and what path to go on. So in your work, you have 3 different tiers, and this is going to match up with your 3 pillars, but you have 3 different tiers. And this is what I love to teach my clients, because in today's world where I feel like everyone is posting content, everyone has an online business, everyone is trying to sell something, how are you going to cut through the noise? The way that you're going to do that is you're going to add depth to your work. This is not just you coming in and teaching, like, here's how to do XYZ, or here's my 3 secrets to doing blah, blah, blah. Those things are not going to be what helps you cut through the noise. You have to stand out for a couple of different reasons. Number 1, just because of who you are. But number 2, because you add depth to your work. There's not just this transformation that is very surface level. It runs deep. Like you actually change people's lives. And so that's what these 3 pillars are going to help you conceptualize, while also helping you create content around the work that you do. Now, I can almost guarantee that you already have this depth in your work. Whether or not you perform that and you teach that and you coach to it, that's a different story. However, you already have this to you, or else you wouldn't be as successful as you are. So we can rip this out, we can bring it to surface, or we can just shine light on it if it already is ripped out of you. So the reason that your content pillars matter, when I walk you through the way that I think about content every single day, first of all. It's like something that I am obsessed with, I get really excited about, and I know that that's not normal. I think a lot of people dread content because they feel like they're not good at it, and it's my mission to make you feel like you're good at it. So people don't like content because it feels overwhelming. I'm going to teach you content pillars the opposite way that most people do. Most people will teach you content pillars as like post educational content on XYZ, post value, post personal stuff. And it's like, okay, I have 3 pillars of those things, and then I have to figure out what fits underneath them. So this is going to not feel like that. This is going to feel really organized, and it's going to make a lot of sense, and it's going to actually help you decide what to say when you sit down to create. So instead of these pillars being what I just mentioned, these 3 pillars are actually around the 3 tiers of the client journey. So you have 3 tiers or 3 levels, whatever you want to refer to them as. I'm going to call them tiers because your content is designed to meet your ideal client at where she is becoming, where she is on the journey. And you've probably heard like have an entry level offer, have an advanced offer, have this, have that. And I agree to that. I agree with that to some extent. However, the core of who you're speaking to is the same client. So for example, if you master speaking to the characteristics of someone who's struggling, you're going to have a really hard time getting that person who's struggling into your highest tier offer, your one-on-one or your mastermind. If you master the ability to speak to someone who is like, I'm done, I'm ready for change. In fact, I've already gotten started in my own way, and she's not relying on you for motivation, like she already has some of the discipline, then you're going to have a really easy time teaching her tier 1 and then funneling her into tier 2 and tier 3. And from there, she's going to thrive. So again, think of these layers as your client moves through your world, not just random buckets of content. This is like a full-on journey. And this is why it's important to have these 3 pillars so that you can speak to your ideal client at many different phases of her awareness. All right, let's get into it. Pillar 1, which is also the equivalent to tier 1. Your pillar 1 is going to represent this is where the depth comes in, your embodiment and your mindset for your ideal client. So tier 1 is the woman your client must become before success is ever even considered, before success is sustainable. So for example, if I'm speaking to my ideal client and she has let's think about this. She has no confidence. Okay. Let's say she does not believe that she's worthy of building a business, and she hates the sound of her own voice, and she's like always in the dumps, and she's always like feels like everyone's against her. That is not the embodiment of my ideal client. If she's feeling that way, which a lot of women do, and they don't even realize it, if she's feeling that way, she needs to, and I believe if someone feels that way, I do believe everyone has the ability to change. That's another thing about this is I've done the work in my leadership to believe that, okay, if someone is like that, I do believe that they can change. That's not necessarily my responsibility to change that part of them. However, I believe that if they are in the right place and they're surrounded by the right accountability and the right mentor, I think they can change, especially if they have this like glimmer of, I want change. So there's a difference there too, is like, you can help anyone that wants to be helped. So again, getting back to the embodiment and the mindset, before the strategy works, before you start to make a lot of money, before like visibility feels safe, I'm talking about my ideal client here. The embodiment that I teach is massive introspection, the willingness to do the inner work. That is the pillar of what I teach when it comes to mindset. I teach full embodiment of the human experience. And I do this based on the fact that I believe in human progression. Like I just mentioned, I believe people can change. So the introspection, the inner work, that is what I teach. And when it comes to mindset, when I break that down, if I were to define that even more, I would say the mindset of my ideal client, she's able to hold different and various perspectives on a situation in her life. She's able to observe what's happening in her life without overanalyzing, without losing her worth, without spiraling. She is able to see situations for what they are without attaching like an unnecessary meaning to them or making up this big story that's going to hesitate her from stepping into her highest version of herself. She understands that everything happening to her is also a lesson shaping her leadership. So again, that's very specific in the mindset that I teach. So it's not about the bypassing of pain. It's not about spiraling. It's not about judging yourself. It's about simply becoming self-aware. I've even named this tier of my world, which I call the elevated woman. You don't have to name yours right now, especially if you're in the beginning phases of just learning about this. Like take this slow and just start to study what you think your ideal client needs to master when it comes to her embodiment and her mindset. The thing at the end of the day is like, my client doesn't just want to make a lot of money. Like she wants to be a thought leader. She wants to be well respected. She wants to have authority. She wants to hold depth. Like she wants to be known for her wisdom. And in order to have that, that requires that inner leadership first. So that's why this is the mindset that I'm teaching. That's why this is my first pillar. I know my ideal client because I am my ideal client. So for a piece of content that would fit underneath pillar 1 for me, that might look like maybe I sit down and I do a chit chat reel, or it could be a carousel. The modality doesn't matter, but this is where I would speak to who she's becoming. And I might say something like, you say you want to create authentic content because that's what everyone tells you to do. Create authentic content, be yourself, but you are still over there questioning your own authenticity. And I'm here to tell you that authenticity is not just like this switch that you turn on. It's something that you fully embody, and it comes from alchemizing your struggles, your wins, your lessons, and realizing that your lived experience is wisdom that turns into authenticity. Use it to your advantage. So again, I'm not sitting over here saying, go be authentic in your storytelling, go be authentic in your content. I'm teaching her what authenticity actually requires. So this pillar in itself, it's going to build massive trust. It's going to hold resonance with your scroller, and it's going to give her permission to step outside of herself and to look at things a little bit more, a little bit deeper, honestly, versus just like, okay, here's the strategy that I implement. So that's tier one. Pillar one is tier one, and that is the mindset, the embodiment in which you teach. Another way to think about this is like when people come into your world, and let's say it's a one-on-one client and you start talking with her and you're immediately like, oof, like you got to work on that mindset, girl. Like, what is that? What does that look like? So that'll help you kind of narrow that down. Okay, moving into pillar two, which is tier two. So the tier two of your world is once she starts to become aware of the mindset and she becomes aware of the embodiment, now she's ready for that strategy. She's ready for the quote unquote craft. So tier two is the core work of what you teach. This is the thing that like, you know that if your client practiced, okay, that's the key word there, practiced this consistently, she would undoubtedly move her, whatever her progress is, whatever path she's on, she would undoubtedly move forward. It would progress her. So this is like the, what are the specific habits, or what is the practice? What is the strategy? What is the framework? The architecture, the thing that you could talk about for days, the thing that you are undeniably an expert in. So for me, to make this make sense and to add parallel meaning, just for an example, tier two or pillar two of my content is my ability to teach people how to create authentic brand storytelling content. Like, it is content in general. It's a little bit more vague, but I have so many strategies that live under this umbrella that I can teach and talk about for days. I can also talk about the mistakes that they're making because this is how much I understand this topic. I can talk about certain ways to do very like granular things. This is where, honestly, like, this is where I teach the 6 content languages. So that's all inside of the Evolution membership is the 6 content languages. This is where I teach scroller psychology. This is where I teach messaging. This is where I teach visuals and modalities and how to actually communicate in a way that would convert an audience or build an audience of obsessed buyers. So this is the strategy that basically sits at the center of everything that I do. Like, you can't change my mind when it comes to content. I fully believe that content is the core of all success when it comes to what we're doing in this industry. Like, if you think about it, everything comes back to content. I believe so much in that. And I've studied content for years. I feel like I'm a master at it. I love that it's always changing. I feel like it's this entire personal development journey in itself. And so that is my tier 2. It's the core of my work. So what your content could look like in tier 2 or pillar 2, this is where you break things down. Like, this is where you teach. This is where you actually demonstrate mastery and you give meaning or assignment or language to things that your client feels or wonders about, but maybe she can't like articulate it yet. This is honestly where you start to earn authority. So pillar 1 was like trust building. They're all trust building in their own way, but pillar 2 is really about authority. And it's not about sounding smart, but it's truly about making things click. So what I'm doing in this episode right now is within my pillar 2. I'm giving you 3 content pillars and I'm hopefully making things click in your brain for you. So this would be my tier 2, my pillar 2 of content. Okay, pillar 3, the final pillar. This is tier 3 for your client journey. And this is really where you have to understand the desired outcome, the desired result, the sustainability, the ongoing, what does success actually mean for your ideal client? And this is going to probably take some time. I think this one's a little bit more difficult to figure out, especially if you're in your early journey. But for my ideal client, for example, I used to say things like she wants 6 figures. And sometimes I'll still filter that in, but I know what I'm doing when it comes to that. Or I would say things like she wants to be a millionaire. And those things are not what success actually means for my ideal client. It's like, it was close, but it's not what it is. Success in my ideal client's mind is the ability to have monthly recurring revenue, to wake up and actually feel like she has a real company, and money is coming in without her having to lift a finger. She just maintains her business and she can scale if she wants to, or she can keep it where it's at if she wants to, but she feels very much in control versus scrambling at the start of every single month, or panic launching, or like doing a guessing game of like, how do I make more money? She has stability. She has stacked income that grows on itself. It feels sustainable. It feels peaceful. And so what the content would look like in my pillar 3 or my tier 3, this is where I could talk about certain business structures or strategies. I could talk about revenue systems. I could talk about long-term growth. I could talk about launching in a way that doesn't feel hectic. I could talk about what stability feels like. This is the pillar where I'm able to show my client, you're able to show your client what's possible after, like the circumstance after the work is integrated from pillar 1 and pillar 2. But pillar 3 is not just like, okay, you've made it. There's still some things to be learned in pillar 3, but it is like it's like the, what do I want to call this? The PhD to the, like tier 1 would be high school. Tier 2 would be college, and tier 3 would be like, okay, you're in your master's or your PhD or whatever that looks like. Like it's the advancement of the client journey. So you can do this for all different niches, but I'm just going to recap what that looks like. The first pillar is the mindset and the embodiment of your ideal client. The second pillar is the strategy, the core of what you teach, like the ultimate framework and methodology that you have. Pillar 3 is the circumstance that she desires, and you have to teach her how to hold that, how to maintain that, what that looks like. All of your content can fit under these pillars. So for example, I might not use the word monthly recurring revenue all the time. Like I might not do this verbatim and match it up the way that I'm delivering it here today, but I do at the same time. So it's not this rigid, have to fit into this box, have to sound a certain way. I'm using these pillars as anchors versus categories. So if you see like I started this in the beginning and I talked about how it used to feel like I was, if it used to feel like I was accomplishing something by sitting in front of my Google Doc and creating categories and subcategories and ideas, versus now I treat these pillars as anchors. So any content language, origin, gap and remedy, whatever it is, it can live under each pillar. So there's always a problem at every tier that you can talk about for the gap and the remedy. There's always a personal story at every tier, which would be origin or identity. There's always desire and afterlife, what you currently embody because you've achieved these things, that you can tell that story at every tier. So the languages fit underneath the pillars. So when you ask yourself, am I posting the right thing? Or does this actually matter? Or why isn't this landing? You don't need more ideas. You don't need more inspo. You need to know, which tier am I speaking to? Which one have I not spoken to in a while? And which one do I need to go a little bit deeper on? Which one do I need to speak more to? So the 6 languages that I mentioned, those are all taught in depth with formulas and examples inside of the Evolution Content membership. So if you want to learn how to do those, I will drop the link. You can join that membership. These tiers, these pillars are something for you to contemplate and just start to understand your own business, your own setup, and you can use this immediately. So the way, before you post, I want you to ask yourself, am I creating this post by speaking to the embodiment of my ideal client? Or am I speaking to the core strategy? Or am I speaking to what sustainable success would look like for my ideal client? And if you rotate through those 3 things consistently, your content is going to feel so grounded. It's going to feel so intentional. It's going to feel extremely magnetic, like it makes sense. And you won't feel like chaotic or forced or like, what the heck, I feel super salesy. This is the simplest, most aligned way that I know how to build content that actually leads somewhere. So 20 minutes. I feel like that's definitely longer than I thought. I imagined this was going to be like a 10-minute episode, but here we are. It's 20 minutes. Hopefully that was helpful. I would love to know your thoughts on the podcast in general, but this episode, if this was helpful for you, please slide in my DMs and let me know. Or you could show some love by leaving a 5-star review, maybe a review on Apple Podcasts where you actually write something. I love, and it would mean the world to me if you showed that love on my show. And I will keep creating very good episodes where you can learn, you can feel, you can contemplate all the good things. Anyway, I hope you have the best day ever. Thank you so much for listening. I love you, and I will see you soon.